Miriam. Thanks so much for joining me today again. This is actually not our first time filming this. We met in person a couple of days ago, but due to technical difficulties, here we are giving it another go. Thankful for the world that we live in where we can actually do this virtually.
Yeah, I'm glad we can speak again.
Yeah. Well, it's great to see you again. And last time we talked about how you and I have been working on ideas and projects that we started with a similar intent and purpose, which is really to build on human connection. And so this will be a slightly different format of a video for me because I think it'll be more of a conversation where we talk about our projects, our experiences, and the lessons that we've learned so far. So I'm really excited to get into it. If you were to just kind of describe 52 Friends, what exactly is it?
So basically, once a week, I meet a new friend or I reconnect with someone from the past. In November of last year, November, October, I was experiencing a period of loneliness for a number of different reasons. I was living in between Toronto and Miami, which I think I didn't realize this, but when you live in between two cities, it prevents you from having a life here or there, in my experience. Also, I'm in my mid-20s, so I think that's a period of time when we move from our childhood friends to our adult friends, and that can be a little bit difficult for a lot of people. But in general, adult friendships can be very difficult, I think. You're a new mother, I think motherhood also impacts how you experience friendship. There's really a lot of different ways, but loneliness in particular is it's something that we all experience, but it's a very individual experience. So we can experience it for a number of different reasons. You can experience it because you feel lonely with your friends, your partner, because you just crave more connections. It could be an existential loneliness. It could be due to illness. And so it really bothered me that we weren't taking this seriously because social connection is a really important part of our health. And we really prioritize eating well and going to the gym, but we don't often prioritize making time for people, making time for one another to really connect. So that's what I wanted to focus on with this project and just raise awareness also to the loneliness stigma, because there's a stigma that if you're lonely, that you're unlikable or that it's a weakness that could even possibly be contagious, but that's not true at all. It's really something that we all experience.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love what you're doing and the awareness that you've been spreading and also the exposure that you've been getting to, because it's such an important message to share.
Yeah. What about you? How have you found your project?
Yeah, so my project being these videos that I've been filming, it's an idea that I think I've had for a while of just, wanting to sit down with people and learn about their career journeys because it's something that I've been personally really curious about. And then I started my mat leave, and the first 6 months of my mat leave, I was very much just focused on the baby and figuring out this new role. And after 6 months, I did start to feel like, okay, I feel like I need to get back out there and get reconnected because I have no idea what's going on in the world. I have no idea what's going on in my friends' lives or really anyone's lives. So I thought this was a perfect time for me to start these videos, catch up with people and build on that human connection and sort of tackle that loneliness that you mentioned as well, because motherhood can be a pretty lonely journey. It's weird because you're never alone. You always have a little human with you, which is amazing. But you can feel isolated from the rest of the world because you can be so caught up in that mommy and baby bubble. So it was really just a great way for me to find fulfillment and joy outside of obviously finding fulfillment in my relationship with my baby.
Do you think that you've had to rediscover your identity now that you've become a mother, whether that be as a friend or as a wife or general?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there's definitely a change in my identity. I would say it has been not so intentional where I've thought about, okay, who am I now that I'm a mom? But it's been a very organic transition. And I think it's still evolving. And I think as humans, our identity evolves as we grow and we go through different phases of life. And motherhood is definitely no exception. So, my values have changed. Obviously, my priorities have changed. The things that I would enjoy or make time for before look a little bit different. So yeah, I think it has changed and I'm still figuring out what this new Samia looks like in this new season of life. But I'm happy that it's been organic and it's something that I've been able to embrace, and I'm not stuck in the past or wanting my old life back, because, you have to accept that that's never really going to happen. You're never going to be what you were 10 years ago. And that's a beautiful thing. Change is a positive thing.
Do you find that it's more difficult to maintain your friendships or have the types of friendships that you have just changed?
Yeah, I think friendships have also evolved. I feel very grateful because some of my closest friends are actually going through the same stage of life, becoming first time moms. So it's actually strengthened our friendships. I may see them less, but I talk to them more and I bond with them more on just the highs and lows of motherhood. So that's been really special. And then obviously I have a lot of other friends who are not becoming moms or don't have any plans to in the near future. And I do like to still maintain those friendships as well, because those bring me a lot of perspective and inspiration outside of just motherhood. There are other aspects of my life that are also important to me, and that make me whole and that make me feel complete. So it's really nice to lean on them for that kind of inspiration. But I will say, the time I spend with friends has changed quite a bit. And now I'm really intentional because every plan I make requires a lot more effort and coordination with my partner to say, okay, I have plans with these friends. Can you be home to watch the baby? So it really has to be something that's a meaningful and significant part of my life. How have your friendships evolved since starting 52 Friends? Because I'm sure that's changed your perspective.
Yeah, I think there's this common question of like old friends versus new friends, or shared history versus finding friends that like align with who you are now. And I really think it's a mix. Like, obviously, shared history is very nice because you can look back on your friendship and like they know what you did in the 6th grade and you know each other's parents, like all these details about each other's lives. But I really think that whether it be an old friend that you have a shared experience with or a new friend that just accepts who you are now and maybe you have more shared interests, friendship is really about that reciprocity and it being a two-way street. So I could really like someone that I meet now, but they might not have space for me in their life because they have many friends, or I could really want to reconnect with someone from the past, but they may not be able to be that great of a friend to me at this point. So it's really about, whether it be old or new, it's about building that relationship with someone and having that two-way street relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't feel good if you are the only one investing into a relationship, and it's hard to walk away. Like you and I talked about this last time, it's hard to walk away from friendships, especially ones that you have a lot of history with and you've maybe gone through different phases of life with. So how have you dealt with that?
I really think that it honestly is grief. Sometimes when you let go of someone, it's almost more difficult than like ending a romantic relationship. This is like something I've explored on project as well. I think we often prioritize romantic relationships as like the highest form of love, and then that's like the greatest love. But like my best friend from childhood in our height, like we used to meet each other all the time and call each other every day. I don't think I've ever had a romantic partner that called me like 3 times a day and wanted to see me all the time. So like that friendship changing from childhood to adulthood, I think is difficult, and like losing people is really grief. But most importantly, I think that the most important relationship you have is the one you have with yourself. If you make time for yourself and really reflect and understand like why you feel lonely and why this person may have hurt you or why this friendship has changed and why that hurts you, I think that reflection and development allows you to accept things more easily.
For sure. That's a really good point too, because if you befriend yourself, to your point, then you almost show up with more love and kindness for others as well. And again, speaking from the perspective of motherhood, I think you lose that sometimes, and you lose sight of how important it is to really invest in yourself because you're so focused and dedicated on growing a human. But you can burn out really quickly unless you take time to invest in yourself and your own care. Then you'll actually show up more present and energized for all of your relationships.
Exactly. Yeah. You kind of touched on this, but friendships are really an important part of our identity. Even though I really encourage everyone to be their own best friend and like to really develop a relationship with themselves, inevitably who we surround ourselves with ends up impacting our reality and like how we view ourselves.
I think that's definitely true, especially in your earlier formative years as well, when you're so influenced by what's around you and kind of the need to belong and fit in, which are all human needs as we're growing up. So your circle is really important. Your friendships are really important and they have a big impact in your life. Miriam, last time we met, you actually had mentioned some research that was shared in a Yale course about the impact that friendships have or social connection has on your life. Do you want to share a little bit of that?
Yeah, so the Yale course, one of the focuses was on social connection. So the professor said that like even if you find a romantic relationship or your dream job, all the things that we think will fulfill us, they actually won't be as fulfilling as social connection. Social connection is what ultimately makes you happy. And there was a study also I think I shared last time, one done at Harvard. It was called the Good Life Study, and they followed people over, I believe it was 80 years, and they found that one of the most important things for you was the quality of your closest relationship. So that's what ends up determining a lot of your happiness. And I think like we all kind of know that to be true. you said we all have this need to belong, and there was a study that was done. It's called like the evolutionary theory of loneliness. So all of us have watched like National Geographic, for example. We see what happens when like a deer is separated from the rest of the pack. They all automatically develop this like anxiety and fear because they're scared that another animal will catch them. And people have that same experience when you're separated or you don't feel included with the group. Then you also like develop anxiety and fear and those types of feelings. And the Surgeon General of the U.S. he recently came up with the statement that loneliness is a public health epidemic. He made the same statement in 2017, and this was before the pandemic. That it was like that it's the greatest problem. And as he worked in hospitals, he saw that greatest problem wasn't like cancer or like the lack of care or anything, but it was generally loneliness. But in his book, he says that problems that we have today, like addiction or suicide or violence or even political polarization, have loneliness at the root. So we often, even like, for example, last year I struggled with depression, and I think people look to assign it to something like more high level, when actually like a lot of the times we just need social connection. We just need someone to like sit with us and speak with us and have a good time with us. We don't really need like what we typically think that we need.
For sure. So we talked about obviously why we started our projects and why it's so important to have that social connection and that human connection to be happier, healthier individuals. What would you say is next for you and 52 Friends? So you're at, I believe, 41 friends now?
So this weekend it's going to be 40. You're going to be friend number 40. So I'm at friend number 40. When I was at like friend 22, she asked me like if I'm going to continue, if I should just continue. And at the time I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just keep going with this and keep making a friend a week. But I think really at 52, I'm done because it looks like I just post one friend a week, but I really do put a lot of effort into everyone. And like a lot of these people like actually become my friends. And so I only manage so much. Like it kind of is like a second full-time job, just like being social. So I think what I really want to focus on moving forward is bringing awareness to stories of loneliness and to encourage human connection. So to encourage us all to prioritize friendship.
In terms of, I guess, continuing to spread awareness outside of writing these 52 Friend stories, how are you planning on doing that? I know you mentioned you're working on a documentary, which is really exciting.
Yeah. So I'm working on a documentary with someone that I was connected with. Actually, like he was following my project, and he worked like for a lot of Canadian media companies, and was recently has some time off. So I'm working with him. So we're just figuring out the logistics, but it's something like really exciting. These were all things that I wanted to be a journalist for a period of time, but I never thought I would have all these opportunities to work with the media and to do all this writing and things like that. So I'm really glad that I'm able to use these skills and like have this kind of like new adventure.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you and I also talked about last time how if we let fear and our own limiting beliefs hold us back from going after these passion projects, then we wouldn't have a lot of the opportunities that we've had now. And sometimes it's just about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and just trying something. The worst that can happen is you fail and then you move on, right? And in most cases, if you show up as your authentic self and you really push for things that you're passionate about, like you said, then good things come out of it.
I think that the nice thing about my project and about your project is that there's two people in the conversation. So I was a bit nervous to start 52 Friends and to share all these like personal details about myself. But then I realized like if I make 52 other people do it, if I make 52 other people be vulnerable with me, then it will take away a bit of that fear.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think us being able to do this with one other person has not only helped us actually do it because we're not alone in it, but also it's, I think, led to a lot of really meaningful conversation.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Are there any conversations that like stand out or any lessons that stand out when you look back at your experience?
I would say one of the big lessons is that everybody in their journey has dealt with some form of hardship or challenge or obstacle that they've really pushed through to get to where they are today. And everybody has a very unique journey. But I think at some point in their career or in their life, they've had to push themselves out of their comfort zone to be where they are today. And they've gone through some transitions or changes. I think a lot of people fear change. I personally did fear change. Change made me uncomfortable. It made me anxious. But if you just kind of embrace it and go with the flow, then you really end up where you're really meant to be.
I think so as well. Like when I started 52 Friends, for example, and this was something kind of a lesson that I had to learn, is I have to really become comfortable with the idea of being disliked. I always like wanted to make everyone around me happy. And I think when you do that, you're not happy yourself then. So I have this like 90-10 rule. And I think that like 90% of people will like us. they'll like want to talk to us, want to hear about ideas. 10% won't. Like 10% for some reason just like won't. They won't like what you're doing, what you're saying, even if they don't know you, they just won't like it. Mm-hmm. So I think once you accept that and like really realize I would rather be disliked for everything that I am than live an inauthentic life, inauthentic persona, because I would just like be wasting my entire being, I think.
Exactly. As you get older too, you kind of realize that like no one really cares about what you're doing. Everybody's kind of focused on what they're doing and their own well-being and their own happiness. So I think when you get to a point where you really stop caring so much about what other people think and you prioritize yourself, that's really when you can live your best life.
I think also then kind of coincidentally, you become more attractive to the world when you stop caring. Then more people, I think, end up appreciating what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so Miriam, I'm curious, you've had a lot of great conversations. You've obviously been researching loneliness a lot as you've been working through this. What would you say is a solution to loneliness?
So this was a question that I really had when I started 52 Friends. I was like, what is the solution to loneliness? Like there must be something we can do to help one another. And I think that it's not like a quick and easy solution we may want it to be. First, I think the most important thing is if you're lonely, then really reflect. So really try to understand like, why am I lonely? Why am I feeling this way? But the ultimate solution, and I speak to this like clinical psychologist, his name is Ami Rocha. She's been studying loneliness for like 40 plus years. So he's like one of the pioneers in this field. And when I asked him this question, he said that the solution is ultimately like to raise children to play together. So we need to just encourage like small children to be really inclusive of one another and like be open-minded and want to play together. And I think in North America, we see this a little bit more where even children are a little bit more cliquey versus I have a friend he's from Haiti, and he said even as kids, like they all played together, they all wanted to make one another feel included. So I think the solution in general, whether it's with children or with adults, is to be a more friendlier collective. So check in on someone who you think may be lonely, say hi to your neighbor, like speak to someone older who you think may be isolated. Just like be the kind of friend that you would want someone to be and think of others and be like empathetic in the way that you live your life.
I think that's a great way of positioning it too, because we talked about how the solution and the tackling loneliness today and for ourselves is building that human connection. But how are we thinking about it in future generations and for the children who are going to grow up and inevitably face loneliness to some degree as well? How do we instill the right values and the right mindset for them so that hopefully they know how to deal with it?
I think like that's something that is almost a fear that as like technology advances and as we spend like even more time working from home, that we'll somehow like lose the empathetic qualities of friendship. That's why like we need projects like ours that focus on human connection and drive the importance of that, because it really is a really critical part of our lives. And if we don't make it a priority, it can have really negative consequences, especially into the future.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, on that note, I'm excited to continue to follow your journey and continue on my journey as well as we grow our ideas and continue to spread awareness around human connection in different ways. Thanks so much, Miriam, for coming on here. Looking forward to staying in touch.